Ayup Woodlanders, a slightly different video I've got for you today, all about trying to inoculate logs with mushroom spores. It's something I've been wanting to do for ages and been inspired by that chappie called Ben Law, who lives down in Suffolk, Sussex way, who does a lot of permaculture style woodland management. I read a lot of his books and always been inspired by how he manages to get lots of different income streams from his woodland. And one of them he does is the shiitake mushrooms. I've never had shiitake mushrooms. In fact, I'm not a big mushroom eater, but I do like the idea of growing mushrooms and being able to eat more mushrooms. And so this is where this project has gathered a little bit of momentum over the last couple of months. I'm a little bit nervous about it because I've spent £60 on these little plugs that have got the mushroom spores in it. And I've no idea how it's going to turn out. Plus I've got to spend a full day trying to get this right. And what I didn't realise was how in-depth this gets. So on Tinternet, when you look, it's like, oh yeah, do this, this and this, and you'll have mushrooms in a week. Well, in all honesty, it isn't that simple really. So I've read the instructions that I got from the company, and some of it is really quite specific. So I'll bring you along for the video. I'll show you what I'm doing. Whether all of this is absolutely necessary or not, I honestly don't know, but I'm going to try and follow their instructions as best I can. I've been felling some trees, mostly oaks. I was hoping to use some hazel, but you have to use hazel that's quite big. And the hazel that I've got that's quite big has been cut too long, because as far as I understand it, you've got to use as fresh a log as possible. We'll get some bits and pieces together, I'll show you what we've got, and we'll make a start on trying to inoculate some logs. Apparently you can use all sorts of different species, including softwood and pines. But I'm going to use what I've got that's freshly felled. You could use things like chestnut and birch and all the others. And I've got lots of ash that's fairly freshly felled. But what I'm concerned about with the ash logs is while they would be superb for this particular job, I'm worried that the fraxinus, whatever it's called, disease it's got is basically a fungal disease, and if that has colonised the log, which quite possibly it has, I'll just show you the species of mushroom that I've gone for. The one that I was really keen to get is called Chicken of the Woods, and I've never tried this. Of all the three that I've got, this is the one that I'm most keen to try and make sure I get right. Then I've got some shiitake mushrooms, tarragon oyster mushrooms. So I'm going to start things off with the Chicken of the Woods. These take the biggest of logs, anything between 6 up to 10-12 inch rounds, as in logs. You can use log rounds or discs as well, it's sort of bigger diameter, but they will be a lot thinner. So I've got two big logs. These are about 9 inch diameter, these two. I've got a smaller one that's about 6 inch diameter. So I've got an 8mm drill, which has got a point on it, so it's a wood drill. I've got my depth stop, hammer to knock the plugs in, and I've bought some sealing wax as well, because Chicken of the Woods, you have to seal as soon as you've done them, something to do with green mould that grows, so the instructions tell me. Sealing wax on the charcoal retort, hoping that that will melt down by the time I've drilled all these. Right, let's try that. That was rather complicated. They want you to try and get the plugs to be equal around the log and up the length of the log. For a 1 metre log, start drilling the first row 5 centimetres from the end. Basically 2 inch in, and you'd drill all the way up, and then what you do then is you alternate the next row. So the next row, let's say these drill holes are 8 centimetres apart, the next one would be there, and they will be offset. And basically need 8 rows, which is quite easy for me because we can do it into quarters and then eighths. So if I did the quarters first at 2 inches, so that one, that one, that one and the bottom one, and then rotate it so like the next one can be the one that's staggered, we're getting somewhere. So I've got myself a 6B pencil. Don't do that. Well, that took an awful long time, and I've only done 1 log so far, but you get the idea. You have 1 row, and then the next row is sort of slightly offset, staggered, and the next row's back where those ones are, and it sort of zigzags all the way around, but your lines are relatively straight up the log like that. That's where a string line would have been better, but I've done it. It's not too bad. So we've got approximately about 105 holes in there. I'm going to do the same with that one as well, and then that one will have about 75, 80 holes in that one. It sort of gives me the Tryphobia heebie-jeebies. If you know what Tryphobia is, you will understand the holes. But the next job is to get the plugs, hammer them home and put some wax in. Interesting. So my 8mm drill bit is too small. That means I'm going to have to drill all of the holes again and try and find what really wanted being an 8.5. So a little lesson there for you. If it does say 8mm plugs, my advice to you would be to get an 8, an 8.5 and a 9mm drill bit, and I've gone for 9mm. So to give you an update on the progress so far, we have got all of the chicken of the woods logs done. According to the instructions, they say all inoculated logs have to be off the ground for at least 3 to 6 months so that no mycelium from the ground can enter the log and outcompete the mycelium that will be in the logs based on the plugs. They recommend a dark, cool place. I'm trying to replicate that in the woodland, but in order to stop the logs from drying out completely, I've come up with an idea of using landscaping membrane, and that allows the log to still breathe. It allows moisture to get in, but it also will stop the wind from drying the logs out too much. I've picked a fairly shady spot underneath these pines. Apparently it doesn't seem to matter what time of year you do this sort of thing, so you can do it sort of during the summer months or in the winter months, but bear in mind that the plugs and the mycelium only start growing when temperatures start to rise. I think they say about 14 degrees or so centigrade, and then the mycelium will start to grow inside the logs. So if you were to do these in the winter time, then nothing's really going to happen during that period unless the temperatures get really quite warm. To try and explain to you why I've actually decided to do this, part of it was because of being influenced by Ben Law, But I was fascinated by the whole mushroom growing process. I do like growing things, and I also wanted to taste all these different mushrooms and knowing that they come from our own woodland. We've got the wood, I've got the space, we just need a little bit of time and a little bit of patience, see what comes of this particular experiment. Also, I'm continually looking for ways to try and diversify things in the woodland, whether that be from coppice products, charcoal products, firewood products, and now edible products. The next job for me will be to get the other plugs done. So we've got some oysters and we've got some shiitakes. I'll leave a link in the description of who the supplier was for these particular mushroom plugs. There's quite a few different places in the UK that do sell mushroom plugs, and all of them just look really excellent places. But this one I got some good reviews, and I thought, well, I'll try them. Their prices are all about the same. Takes about 2 weeks, or it took them about 2 to 3 weeks for the delivery to be made, because they make them to order. So they inoculate the plugs and they cultivate them and only send them out once they're starting that process. You only get a short window of being able to put the plugs in. So the ones I got were dated to last until July, but I was keen to get them in as soon as possible. These chicken of the wood mushrooms require a rather big log, so anything 6 inches up to about 10 inches. The other ones, the oyster mushrooms and the shiitake mushrooms, can end up with being a much smaller log, so they're really ideal for start and beginning, because you can have a log that's sort of 4-inch round, which would be really quite small branch wood in a way. So maybe you've got more access to branch wood rather than the big logs. Fairly simple tools, a few laying out marking tools like tape measures and pencils, and then the wax that I used was what they supplied. I bought 1 kilogram of wax, which is way too much. I'll be honest, I probably used 1/4 of what they've sent, and then half of that is still in the pot on the charcoal retort. So as for wax, I don't honestly know whether I'd buy their wax beads again. I think I might just end up using a candle. As long as it wasn't a scented candle or something daft, I think you'd be all right with candle wax. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I have a habit of telling you I think I know what I'm on about and I haven't got a clue. Now that I've got these 3 done, it's given me a little bit more confidence to do the next ones. I'll be totally honest with you, this morning I was very apprehensive about the whole thing, and between me, you and the rest of the internet, I've been putting it off for a number of weeks, thinking, am I going to do it? Have I got the equipment? What if it turns out wrong? And just trying to work my way through it. Anyway, we've got to this stage. I am pretty confident we are on the right track. Chicken of the woods can take between 6 and 9 months for the logs to inoculate. That's why you have to double up the amount of plugs you put in them, because of the sheer time it takes to inoculate a log, and you're trying to stop other mycelium and fungi getting into the log. So for an average 1 metre log that's about 6 inches round, you're looking at 60 plugs normally, whereas this one was 120. The shiitakes, on the other hand, because it's a smaller log and must get into the log a lot quicker, they're saying that within just a few months really you can get that going. And what you do is you have to check the ends to make sure that the mycelium are spreading. The ends tend to go white or orange, and once that's fully spread in the log, you can then, especially with shiitakes, you can shock them up to about 4 times a year, which means that you can plunge it into a bath of cold water for 24 hours. So it shocks the mycelium into producing mushrooms, the fruiting bodies, and you get them within a couple of weeks. Now, it doesn't say you can do that with chicken of the woods, and I don't think you can do it with the oysters either, which I'm only just finding out about. So it looks like chicken of the woods could well be only harvestable once a year, from about August through to about October. And I doubt very much whether anything will come of that this year. I've got a feeling it'll be at least 18 months before I get my first mushrooms out of these. So if you're prepared to do the waiting game, then why not give it a try. So thanks for watching this one. If you're able to, and you've got a few logs kicking about, why not inoculate a few logs? See you on the next one. So we've managed to get all of our logs finished. 2.5 chicken of the woods, 2 shiitakes, that's these 2, and 2 oyster logs, all finished and done. And with these, I had a little bit of wax left, so I've just waxed the ends. They say you don't actually need to do this, but it does help to seal in the moisture a little bit better, to try and stop the ends from checking. I didn't really want to make this a tutorial style video because I really have no idea what I'm doing. More of an inspiring kind of video, in that if you feel inspired to have a go at this, initially it might feel a little bit daunting, as it was for me, but once I got my measurements all sorted and I knew what was going on with sort of alternating the drill holes and that sort of thing, what size logs I needed, this inoculation process was pretty straightforward, really. Moving forward, it will be a case now of just making sure the logs don't dry out. Oak does take a long time to season, and I will keep you updated on the progress. I know we won't get fruit this season at all, but it'll be nice to see where the future goes with these next year. If you have any questions at all, or can give me any further advice on these if you've had a go, by all means pop them in the comments, and together we can use the comments as a bit of a added information section. Here's to some mushrooms next autumn.